Hello, friends, and welcome back to Extraordinary Connection. My name's Robert Blanchard. I'm the pastor here at Lansing First United Methodist Church, and I'm happy to have you here with me for a few moments today. Saturday afternoon, I got a text from my sister that she was over in East Lansing and was wondering if she could stop by that evening, even though we already had some friends who were staying with us for the weekend. I was happy to have her join us, and we spent much of the evening playing board games. During our board game, we got distracted with a side conversation about the hopes for the USA national softball team and their game on Sunday against Japan. As our friends continued on with the game, we got lost talking about how the offense was really going to need to step up if they wanted to contend for a gold medal, how the defense was top notch, and what was going on with some of the players who hadn't made the team. Then she checked her phone and saw that the softball team was about to go into extra innings in a game against Australia. We had both somehow missed in their schedule that they were playing that night, and as soon as I could find the right channel, we were fixated on the conclusion of this game that had gone scoreless for 7 innings. As we watched the game, my sister made a comment about how all over the place the umpire's strike zone was. A few seconds later, she got a text from my dad. It said, "The ump for this USA-Australia game is terrible." I suppose I should fill you in at some point that my sister is a college softball coach who was in East Lansing that day to scout a travel ball tournament. And I suppose I should mention that she was a 4-year starter at the University of Michigan with a laundry list of accolades from her college career, who played for 2 years with one of the players on the national team and against several of the other players on the team. So when her former teammate drove in the 2 runners to end the game, we were thrilled by what we saw on the screen. My sister let out a few cheers. Now, just to make it very clear, my sister got 100% of the athletic talent. Where I have always been obsessive in regards to academics in the church, she has been equally obsessive in her pursuit of softball. Nonetheless, sports have left an indelible impact on my own life. It's no coincidence that we had been discussing the ins and outs of the national team during our board game, nor is it a coincidence that my dad texted my sister right as she was commenting on the umpire's erratic strike zone. Softball became a way of life for our entire family. When my sister was about 10 years old, we first really encountered the world of competitive travel ball when she started playing for a 12 and under team called the Lady Irish. A few other girls from our town were involved with that team, and my sister was looking for something more challenging than the local rec league to be a part of. From that point on, we spent every summer on the road, traveling from tournament to tournament each weekend. My sister would play for a lot of teams over the years as she sought out more and more competitive programs. There were a few years that we found ourselves traveling out to Colorado for a week-long tournament that was renowned for attracting the biggest names in college coaching for recruitment. The totality of that lifestyle is hard to communicate if you haven't experienced something like it firsthand. And for a while, I very much resented how totalizing that lifestyle was. The first year that my sister started playing travel ball, I came into a knowledge about a truth that I hated for a long time. The national tournament that was the goal of every serious competitive travel team is held the same week as my birthday. So I spent my 13th birthday in a hotel in Indianapolis because that was where the tournament was being held that year. Some of the dads joked about how a 13-year-old boy couldn't ask for much more than be surrounded by girls for his birthday, but I was the kind of kid who was only made uncomfortable by those jokes. And it wasn't just the fact that my birthdays were suddenly forfeit that bugged me either. My whole summer was suddenly dictated by my sister's life. I know that my parents tried very hard to make sure that I knew that I was loved just as much as my sister, and that they tried to give me chances to make decisions about where we would stop along the way. For example, when we all loaded up in the car the first summer after I had gone to college to go on a trip to Pennsylvania as a combination vacation/nationals trip, they let me decide that we would stop at Valley Forge as a birthday treat. But as an angsty teenager, it was harder to see the things that I did have than the things that I perceived myself as missing out on. Some of what I was missing was maybe more legitimate than others. I was tired of always being viewed as my sister's brother instead of as my own person. Other things were probably more imaginary than real, like missing out on whatever I thought my friends were doing with their weekends on the summer. And some of the things that I thought I was missing out on just didn't actually match up to what I was experiencing instead. I missed sitting at home and reading books or playing video games and didn't appreciate what an opportunity it was to be traveling all over the country, meeting people from all walks of life and experiencing a world much larger than myself. Which brings me at last to the points that I'm trying to make. I'm thankful that as I move further from those teenage resentments, I can come to appreciate the lessons that athletics can impart to us. How often do you encounter someone for whom Christianity is as totalizing an experience as softball has been for my family? We see the prophet Isaiah say that in God we will run and not be weary. The apostle Paul in several of his letters speaks about running the race that is before him, and we also see this imagery in the letter to the Hebrews and in 2 Timothy. But just as my sister didn't achieve all that she did without years of hard work and dedication and sacrifice, neither shall we run the course that is set before us very well if we don't do so with equal intensity. The Holy Spirit most surely strengthens and sustains us, but it takes practice to hear and encounter the Spirit in our lives. It takes dedication to walk in the ways of the Lord. Living a Christian life asks more of us than just showing up for worship on Sunday morning. It is good for us to show up to worship, but game day for us is every day of the week. When we gather for worship, we're coming together in between innings, as it were, to refresh ourselves, not with Gatorade, but with the body and blood of Christ, so that we can get back out into the mission field, give it 110%, and take it one act of mercy at a time. We also need to be aware of the fact that there are times when we and others won't be able to see what we have because what seems to be missing will overtake it. If we can only see the things in worship that we don't appreciate, then we miss out on the ways that God might be speaking to us. Or if we can only focus on the attention that another church is getting or the ministry that another church is doing, we will lose sight of the unique ways that God is calling us into our own identity. Because if we only see the opportunities that others have, we will miss the connections that we are making. We will miss the love that is right in front of us. We will miss the community that we could be building together with the Holy Spirit. But if we can be the kinds of Christians who do surrender ourselves wholly to Christ, then others may resent us for that. They may think us arrogant for the assurance that we have in the saving power of Jesus Christ and the dominion of God over all creation. They may be envious of the deep, abiding love that we receive from the Holy Spirit as they seek love in the transient things of this world. They may feel as though the church takes too much of our time and asks too much of us. But Christ doesn't ask for us to serve when it's convenient or when we feel like it. We are asked to make sacrifices. We are asked to become a living sacrifice for God. So when I watch the Olympics and I watch how much those athletes have sacrificed to get there, how singular their devotion to improving themselves has been, I wonder what the church would look like if we could all have that same devotion to seeking perfection in love. We will undoubtedly have detractors along the way, but should that deter us? Or shall we run the race that is set before us? Until the next extraordinary connection, I will see all of you on the racetrack, friends.